Hello, hello, and welcome everybody to the FRS Motorsports main channel. We are here getting ready to kick off round 3 of the season here with the PC Division R race coming up just in a second here. Alright, perfect. And just making sure that all the audio is working correctly. We've got some hot takes already in the chat for this PC Division R race. Division Reserve is what it stands for a few of the later signups, but also serves as a really good testing bed for drivers going into this race weekend. But hot takes coming in already. Coral is predicting a Spike win, Charlie Chibbles P2 and Madsta P3, so we'll see how that shakes out on the podium today. And then Scotty saying Chibbles is going to actually be P1. So we'll see who comes in correct for that one. But we are making the first of 2 visits to the USA this week. Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. 5.5 kilometers, 20 corners. And much like a lot of the other tracks in this game, likely going to see that medium hard kind of combination of running. The softs can go a little bit longer than you would expect, at least compared to what there was last weekend in Spa, where they were pretty much dead after a lap or so. So we may see some use of the soft tires. And keep an eye on the screen as we scroll through some of the season updates in the different championship orders, so you can keep a peek on there. And I am checking up to see... You're right, I'm not on spectator. Let me fix that. Good call. Alright. USA. So we actually have 2 USA races this season. You'll notice if the calendar is just went up a little bit ago there. We do have another visit. Round 6 of the season is in Miami, and that'll be in the middle of September time frame. But a technical circuit, you're taking a look now just as we're glossing over the middle sector. A ton of switchbacks back and forth there. Very, very good opportunity for side-by-side racing in this one. Of course, long, flat-out right-hander. See how the cars handle it in race conditions. In older games, it was pretty much easy flat. Now, I think, at least in my testing, it's been a little bit more sketchy coming through there. There is the opportunity for weather to hit Austin. It's not common, but there is the opportunity for it to be there. So weather can play a factor from time to time, but realistically, likely going to be very hot temperatures. Now, there was a change made to the event notes. Because of the lovely, lovely bright sun that exists in the qualifying session down the back straight and into the final corner, we've adjusted our lobby settings to a static or a set race time start as opposed to the official, as the official was just very, very difficult to see, and it was very hazy as well. Coral saying that Miami is going to be full wets. We'll just have to wait and see. It's not out of the question for sure. But as we're taking a look at the track as we fly around in this warm-up, just waiting for the lobby to get filled. Should be roughly about 5 minutes or so till the start time. It is just 5 minutes before the hour, and that is the official start time. Of course, the S sections here are the Herman Tilke track, taking some inspiration from Maggots and Beckett's in Silverstone, really making for a technical start to the race there. So definitely a fun one. And of course, the massive hill climb that is up into turn 1 is another way to really get going in this one. Looking down the entry list, we've got Elliott on the grid, Chibbles, Mazda, Coral, Spike, Gali, who's just seen a promotion from PC Division 3 up to Division 2, so they will be relinquishing their championship lead there going forward, as they were leading that Division 2 championship. So they were too quick. So there's going to be some adjustments after this round here. After round 3, we should be done with any kind of driver changes. So we will release a a new set on the socials of the driver placements as drivers have moved around. So we will get a new updated. Luckily, most drivers that have changed divisions have not changed teams. They're still driving for their same team. I believe Alpine is still where Gali is. He's moved up from Div 3 to 2. Zados is also going to be a pretty good contender there, as Coral points out. Definitely a very good contender there. But they've got to contend with Coral, who is shown to be the class of the field so far. We should see a little closer racing up front, and we'll get a little bit of hopefully some action in that one, because we do have Gully, Zados, and Coral all on the grid today in this PC Div R race. So if they can find themselves around on the track, they may get some preview into the battles that they are going to be taking part in this one. Looks like there is, at least according to the entry list that I'm seeing now, potentially one new driver on the grid, CPT Wilco. Believe they are new to the grid. We'll keep an eye out, and we'll see how they can work through. They're going to be in the Haas today, alongside MML Ruprath. But other notable names on the grid, of course, Charlie Chibbles. You would expect, gets plenty of time in the seat. Space Ghost out in the Williams, alongside False Tax, who is technically leading the PC Div R Championship, if I'm not mistaken, and has shown pretty good pace. Renovatio still trying to sort out some of the gremlins in PC Division 4. A DSQ in the race 1 after overtaking the safety car, and then a DNF in race 2 has been a tough one to get around. Yeah, track limits are definitely going to be a thing. There's plenty of runoff, and there's lots of quick corners. There is one spot to look out for. I believe it is turn 15, the left-hander we're looking at, just right in your background there. If you cut that, it is one that will give you an instant time penalty, so look out for drivers potentially getting picked up on that. However, they can appeal it in the steward's offices afterwards, and likely will get an instant flat time penalty downgraded to a warning, depending on if they have given up the advantages or not. PlayStation Division 1 on the screen now actually has all 10 drivers on the championship. After race 1 only had 7 finishers. They've had a few more and now have a rounded out 10 in the top of the division. And of course, interesting to see Robin B up in there, who has a reserve driver technically, and that is why they are not showing a team. We're once again sitting at the middle range of tires, the C2, C3, C4. But the tire delta, fairly similar to what we should have seen last weekend. Of course, it's hard to kind of suss it out completely with all the different fuel weights and all that fun stuff, but you should look to see the soft tire being the quickest tire outright, the mediums be about 0.8 of a lap slower, and the hards be about 1.6 off the pace. So about an 0.8 split between all. The hards very resilient around here in the testing I've done so far. Really, they keep their pace almost all the way until they hit puncture territory. So we'll see if any drivers opt to start on that hard tire and extend later into the race. But I think we are just now hitting on the hour. And I think we have one person connecting. Project Stealth has connected. They just need to set their car, and away they will go. We'll get the countdown timer started just about now. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to FRS Season 6. We're kicking off the race weekend with PC Division R, as usual, here on this Friday. Round 3, we take our first of 2 visits to the United States Circuit of the Americas. Here's the track, 5.5 kilometers around, 20 corners, and 2 DRS zones, one down the front straight and one down the very long back straight. Look to be your 2 best overtaking opportunities in this one. Now, it's been a bit of an underdog story. Winners here in Austin in the FRS have only gone on to win the Drivers' Championship 4 times in their 14 chances. And even with this long back straight, drivers will spend about 62% of the lap at full throttle, so still some twisty bits to work around. Turn 1, the big climb up the hill, is the first of your 2 major overtaking zones at the end of the first DRS straight. You can brake very late as you are launching your way up the hill there and really get the car rotated. It's a wide entry and a narrow exit, so look for turn 1 shambles in, your next best overtaking opportunity. At the tail end of that long straight, downhill braking in this case, turn 12, which leads you into the tricky bit of the middle sector as you hit those switchbacks left and right. Here are the tires we've got this race weekend. The softs, of course, is the fastest. The mediums, 0.8 of a lap slower, and the hards clocking in at just about 1.6 per lap slower. Softs should get about 8 laps of life in this one. The mediums about 16, and the hards 21 laps in this 28 lap race that we've got going on. As cars are just now getting on the outlap, we'll jump on board with them and see how everybody is starting to work their way around. So let's make sure we hide some of this UI stuff, and it looks like we've got a Haas at the front of the pack. Not that Haas. It should be Ruprath who is leading the outlap train as plenty of cars are getting out. You can see the traffic building up in the background, and should be Ruprath who is the first to set their flying lap of the session here. So they're coming now down into the braking zone for turn 12, finding a little bit of a mark, but just easing the tires through. You don't want to take too much life out of the tires in this one as you're on your outlaps, so make sure that you have plenty of life for your actual flying lap. But we've got a full 20 cars on the grid here, all loaded in. So your entry list: Charlie Chibble, Spike, Brad Spit, Wilco, who appears to be the new driver, Space Ghost, Ruprath, Coral Gully, Peter Ward, False Tax, Blackbird, Clone Richie, Madsta, Milo, Riemann, Project Stealth, Zados, Renovatio, Tez, and Elliot. Now, let's hop on board with our Haas driver, who is going to start the first flying lap. DRS is open as they get ready to head up the hill. Find kind of that light box on the right is about the braking zone just before that split. Turn the car in, get it rotated, and around the corner they go. Down the hill into turn 2, and now see how brave they can be on the throttle. Flat through turn 3, turn 4, little bit of a lift out. Now you're going to see a flick to a downshift, is double right-hander. Now trying to carry some speed, a little tap of the brakes, and now tricky right-hander up the hill. Open the angle up. You can gain some time by hooking onto the inside of that right-hand corner. Now flat down that little left-handed kink. Find the braking point into turn 11 and get the best exit you can out of this hairpin, because you are going to gain or lose tons of time down this long straight. Down into turn 12 they go, running right over the curbs, nice and safely run it out. And we should have a decent bit of a benchmark to work with. It seems to be a fairly clean lap. However, there is a car kind of closing up on the gearbox. Now, of course, with while being on a flying lap, they are under no obligation to move out from cars behind them. So they're looking to set their first time. There's a spinner in Sector 1. It looks to be one of the Aston Martins who has gone around. And now Ruprath working their way out of the final corner, getting the power down, rear light flashing, so used up a lot of battery on that one. Goes to the top of the timing sheets. Charlie Chibbles, though, quickly usurps it up into the 33.3. Spike, quickest next overall into the 33.2s. Brad Spit is on their lap. Clone Richie sets a time. We were just kind of looking to see, trying to find somebody who is in a good position. It looks like Gully has invalidated, which is a risk here around this track. Invalidations can certainly happen. We'll see. Looks like Milo has bailed out of their lap, and we've got a quite the mess of traffic coming through the final 2 corners. Space Ghost on the throttle, and you've got a Haas and an Alpha Tauri all close up, so Space Ghost goes 37.0. Wilco, the new driver, 36.8. Spike still up in front. False Tax goes up into the top 3 on a 33.8. So we've got 3 drivers into the 33s at this point. And now we get to take a short breather, as I believe Elliott in the other Aston Martin should be coming into the pits. Yes, you see that yellow dot coming in just now. We will try and track down who is on a flying lap. I believe Riemann coming through the flat right here. Had to dodge around a Aston or an Alfa Romeo there, just about keeps it in bounds, but that may have cost them a little bit of time as they come out of the final corner, getting the throttle down, crosses start finish line only 35.2, so still time to be found in that one. We'll grab next up not Coral, or we will grab Coral. They're on a flying lap. The rear light is already flashing, so they may be on a slow lap in. And look at the traffic coming down the back stretch. Tons of cars all getting ready to make their way back in. We'll jump ahead and actually grab Gali, who's the next on a flying lap in the Alpine. Fresh off the heels of their promotion, just about keeping the tires on the white line and inbounds. Brakes for the final corner, rotates the car, gets on the throttle, and out of the corner they go. Goes to a 35.0, so goes up to P6 provisionally. So just about half the field with valid laps set on this one. I believe Coral may have invalidated their previous, although let's see, a 104.030. We'll see if they're going to continue to push through these final 2 corners. They're not going to push in. They're in the lap and away they go. We will grab not Milo. I believe Renovatio has already set a time, so let's try and find the furthest forward car that is on an out lap, as everybody is just warming up tires coming down this back straight. It looks like Peter Ward is the lead of that group. We should see those 3 cars ahead of them on the trap map come in before the to start the flyer. So as they get these soft tires in the one, you really don't have to work them all that hard, honestly. The nature of the track puts plenty of energy in on its own. But Spike still your provisional pole sitter at the moment by just about half a tenth over Charlie Chibbles in P2. False Tax about half a second off the pace, rounds out the top 3. So Tez sets a lap time, goes up into the 36s, 36.452, and now we will grab for this flying lap one Peter Ward in the Red Bull. Gets the throttle down out of the corner. Not the cleanest exit. That's going to cost them a little bit of time. But now headed up into turn 1. Try and spot that braking point. The track is fairly bumpy around here, so ABS can definitely help out some drivers, as those with no ABS are going to struggle to really drop the anchors and can potentially make some mistakes on this one. So flipping it through the S section kind of concludes with this double right-hander, left-hander, and then you've got to find your way to open the steering up and into turn 9. Back end gets a very light as you crest the hill, and Peter Ward looks like they're going to get a bit of a slipstream down the back straight. They're on the tail of Ruprath, who is on their out lap, although it looks like they're just going to move out of the way. So DRS flips open as they go full throttle down this back straight, looking to find roughly just shy of 200 miles an hour, depending on the wing levels that drivers are running. They won't be getting anywhere near the straight line paces that we saw last week in Spa. The S's really demand that you have some wing in order to carry through, and now through the tight right-hander. And this whole section that we're going through now is a great section for side-by-side, wheel-to-wheel fighting. It switches back right, left. It's plenty of opportunity to keep another car side-by-side, and Peter Ward is about to catch that McLaren. McLaren bails out of the way nicely. Peter Ward flicks it through the final corners, and we will pick them up as they round the last corner, get the throttle down. They're going to be close to the 36s. 35.623 goes provisionally P9, so up into roughly the top 10. We'll see who we've got next coming around the corner. I believe, no, that is going to be Milo, who has invalidated their lap. So looks like 2 tries for Milo, still has yet to set a valid lap time. Mazda, though, has a valid lap time. They're coming out of the final corner. DRS flips open, and they go up into the top 5 at 34.5, so a very good run from them. Keep an eye as a blue dot just starting their flying lap now. Let's see who we can grab next, as there are so many blue dots around here. Spike is there. on a flying lap off the pace of their previous best. False tacks, we'll catch them at the start of this lap here and see where they're going as they kick through the S section. It's a good opportunity to grab that inside the cockpit cam. You see the change of direction working for them. But we've just about cleared the halfway point as somebody's jumped up the tables. Looks like that was a Clone Richie jumping up the tables, or Brad Spitt. Oh, big snap of oversteer for false tacks that time, coming over the crest of the hill. So a mistake there is going to cost them quite a bit of time. It's going to be hard to bridge that gap to leaders. Even a 0.4 of a second improvement for false tacks is not enough to move them another position in the rankings. But with just shy of 8 minutes left in this one, Spike is on provisional pole with Charlie Chibbles second. False tacks we're watching now, provisionally third ahead of Zados. Madsta, Ruprath, Clone Richie, Brad Spitt, Gali, and Riemann making up your top 10 at the moment. Of course, most cars out on the track now and most cars on a flying lap. It looks like somebody's made a mistake through turns 16, 17. And that is an Alpha Tauri. We'll see if we can get a glimpse as we rocket through here. And has to swing wide, actually. That Alpha Tauri kind of parked on the inner apex. That's going to cost some angle. And I think false tacks going to find it very difficult to improve with the wobble coming out of turn 9. And then they do improve by just about a 0.5 of a second, so not a huge opportunity for time to be found there. Chibbles just coming out of the pit lane now. That means the other Aston Martin of Elliott is the one that is on a flying lap, although very slow compared to their previous one. We'll try and see that that next car, the Alfa Romeo of Brad Spitt, has invalidated, although I believe they are on an in lap, so they're making their way into the pit lane now. Riemann coming around the final 2 corners, keeps it in bounds. Looks like they may be just about on pace to improve out of the final corner. Getting the hammer down does improve by 0.7 of a second up into P9. So into the top 10 goes Riemann. Madsta will grab next, who has, nope, other Ferrari grabbing Project Stealth. I said Project Stealth. Nope, has had a spinner out of the final corner. So that is another lap time gone for them. We'll grab Gali, who is next up across the line. Coming into the final corner, pitches it in. Tough little bumpy apex there. Throttle down, improves by 0.5 second up into 8th place overall, I believe. It is indeed Coral next. Nope, Coral is not next. Coral has invalidated. So into the pit lane comes a few. Oh, and Coral's understeered into the barrier, and that's going to be a little bit of wing damage. So that's going to cost them a couple of minutes. I don't think it's going to be critical to them. Renovatio across the line, it appears, or is that Milo starting a flying lap? Milo starting a flying lap on this one. Let's jump on board and see how they can measure. Plenty of battery in the tank there, so they're fully geared up for this flying lap. Flick it into the S's, try and take as much curb as you dare. It seems to be relatively neat and tidy, just a little bit of a lift. And then up the hill, get the car rotated, carrying 5th gear through there, so plenty of low-end torque is going to be necessary. Now, to close out the first half of the lap, you hit hard on the brakes into turn 11 as the track undulates up and down in that tough braking zone. And then you finally get a chance to breathe down this huge back straight. Picking up a good amount of speed is Milo, 312 kph, almost 315 now, as they hit the top end, as braking into the final. There's a bit of traffic coming up just ahead, so hopefully it is not the kind of traffic that is going to hold up a driver on a flying lap such as Milo here. Of course, no times to compare to for Milo, as they have yet to set a valid lap, and this will likely be their last opportunity for a flying lap as well. I think they're going to just about not quite have the time to come all the way back around, get a new set of tires on, and go again. Although 4 minutes, it'll be close. They essentially need to pelt their in-lap by quite a bit. But crosses the line, 34.3, goes up into 7th place on that one. So a very good run. We'll grab now Charlie Chibbles, who is coming out of the final course, but has invalidated. Just runs a little bit too wide. Spike coming through the little middle sector here. See if they are on a track to improve. This one doesn't quite look it, but just ballparking by the sector time so far. Flicks it through the penultimate corner. Find your braking zone for the final corner. Into the corner they go. There's some dirt on the car there, so they've made a bit of a mistake. And they do not improve. Sets a purple final sector, but falls just a few hundredths short of their previous best lap. Next around the track, Dr. Zados not improving by about 2/10 down. However, there is some time to be found in those last two corners, especially the penultimate corner. It's a blind entry. It's hard to really nail the apex and exit speeds on that one. So around the corner they go, hard on the brakes. Back on the throttle, flip open the DRS, across the line, just about even with their previous best time. So no improvements found there. We'll jump on as Brad Spitt is about to start a flying lap. And we'll watch on board with them as they come down into turn one. Tricky getting the throttle down as you crest that hill. You have to be careful not to overstep the throttle. There's definitely been opportunities for spinners in that corner. Millo is out. Millo has crashed on the entry to the pit lane. So their 7th place, as good as it's going to get. That car should get cleared up relatively easily. But that is a big mistake. Oh, and invalidated is Brad Spitt. Over the line they go. So easy to lose the back of the car and have to gather it up around that corner. We'll see if we can find somebody, anybody, who is on a flying lap. Space Ghost, negative. They've invalidated. Got Tez, who is on a flying lap now, is starting the back straight here. Just about level with their previous best lap. We will see if they can carry any kind of advantage into the final sector. The middle sector, only a few corners, obviously dominated by the back straight most of the sector time. And you've kind of already exited the S's. It's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corners here in this middle sector. And they've improved quite massively. Almost 0.4 of a second improvement in the middle sector. Fling wide open, try and pick. You'll see drivers take very different lines. Sorry, I had to deal with a bit of nonsense in the chat there to get rid of a annoyance. But Tez does set a lap time, goes up into the 17th place. Now, Spike has opted to retire from the session. We will see if we can find it. Looks like Mazda, the Ferrari, is on a flying lap. Just keep an eye on the dots as they cross, as I think that is Coral starting their flying lap as the orange. Some yellow flags here and there as cars get out of the way. But Mazda looking to get into the top 10 on those soft tires in the Ferrari. So next across the line looks to be one of the blue dots. I believe Charlie Chibble is going to be the next to start a flying lap in this one. And we'll keep an eye on the timing tower as there are quite a few dots starting to work their way through the final corner. So crossing the line, Riemann does improve, goes up into 11th, pushes Mazda down by 1 spot. Next up, we're going to have a Haas cross line. Looks to be no root breaths up there into the 8th. Deli is retired to the from the session. Renovatio into 13th in the Mercedes, crossing that line there. Looks like a car is pulled off to the outside. That may have been a crash that has caused them to retire. But Mazda flicking through the middle sector now, looking to try and move their way up the grid. I believe it is going to be Tez that is next across the line. I don't think they had the battery power to improve. Tez does cross the line, takes the checkered flag. Next up will be one of the Alfa Romeos. No, Alfa Romeo is into the pit lane. A Ferrari of Project Stealth has parked it, as has a Haas. Mazda is going to be next across the line. They do improve up to 5th, goes into the 33, so a big improvement there. We'll grab now, I believe it is Coral coming out of the final 2 corners. Improvements by 0.2 of a second. Looking to jump a little further up. That's going to leave them well short of pole position, but they do go up into the top 5 with that one. Next up is not Riemann, but should be not even Peter Ward. I can't even find who it is. There's too many blue dots. False Tax has binned it in the final corner. Charlie Chibble's next across the line, though. He is going for pole position. Needs to find about a 10th. Crossing the line, does improve, goes 0.2 quicker onto pole position, a 33 flat, so nearly down into the 32s goes Charlie Chibbles. Let's find the next driver. Nope. As it looks like Falstack's really having a mare of it in the final corner. But we'll keep an eye. A few more drivers on their hot laps in this one. Peter Ward going to be ducking into the pit lane. Looks like just about everybody ducking into the pit lane. So I believe that may be this session done and dusted. Looking up and down, looks like everybody is either taking the checkered flag or retired. So Charlie Chibbles takes your pole position here for the PC Div R United States Grand Prix number 1. Spike shares the front row with 2/10 of the gap. Ruprath and Falstack take up row 2, split by less than a tenth. Coral and Madsta also in that 33.8 range. Clone Richie is the first of the 34s, alongside Dr. Zados. Milo and Elliott round out the top 10. Gali is 11th with Riemann 12th. Renovatio 13th and Brad Spit 14th. Blackbird and Peter Ward are next with Tez Space Ghost, Captain Wilco, and Project Stealth rounding out the grid, as Project Stealth doesn't seem to have gotten a representative lap time on with that 44.5. So we'll see what they can do in race pace and if they can make their way up through the grid. We can get rid of that little timing tower there. And we will just hang out while things get wrapped up. But the final qualifying order, as we ran through a good run from Charlie Chibbles to pole by 2/10, and then it's about a half a second gap to the next 4 drivers. Clone Richie just outside of that, or just inside that 1 second mark to the pole position. Zados just outside. Milo is about another 2/10 back alongside Elliott. Gali another 1/10 back, very close to the pace of Riemann. Renovatio, Brad Spit, Blackbird, Peter Ward, Tez, Space Ghost, Wilco, and Stealth. So good qualifying session there in a full dry running. So fairly representative, I would say, of the lap times that we've seen. And we'll see, we should be seeing quite a few people down into the, I would say in Div 1, we might see people even crack that 32 mark. I think 33 is just about the border. I think when you put the heat on of the tighter competition, you will see those Div 1 drivers dip into the 32s, especially considering that Fraser has really been quite strong in PC Division 1. But we'll take a moment and relax as the drivers get their strategies set. See if anybody opts for any interesting tire choices. The sun is out as we are loaded onto the pit lane, and you see the cheering fans. However, we don't know if that will maintain. There seems to be some clouds in the sky. And there is a chance that we may see some rain. But as you see the countdown on the screen, we're getting ready to get going. There is still an issue with formation laps, so we will be right into it. There is no formation lap on this one, so people need to be careful. It's going to be a little bit chilly on the tires into turn 1. There's a little bit more of a run into turn 1 than we had last week into turn 1 at Spa, but you will still have some cold front tires, and in a corner that goes from a very wide entry to a very narrow exit, it could get a little bit dicey. But here comes the 5 red lights, and the lights are out, and away they go as this predictive pit stop strategy covers the entire screen. But we'll keep an eye as Ruprath has got a very slow start and lunging up the inside. Oh, that is, I believe that is Elliott into the back. And that is a huge, huge shambolic start. Ruprath gets caught up side by side. And Charlie Chibbles is away relatively free and clear. But that is a messy, messy, messy start. So let's find some drivers back in the pack where things are getting interesting. Elliott has rejoined at pace. And there is some serious dicing back and forth through the S's. Drivers just now starting to get themselves sorted. But Elliott, on the hard tires, a very, very missed braking point. The only driver aside from Space Ghost to start on the hard tires. And Elliott picking up another 5-second penalty for, I'm assuming, the overtake, an overtake made under yellow. So Elliott is Elliott's going to be in trouble. Let's just say it that way. We'll jump ahead as Clone Richie and Milo dicing it out a little bit for the top 5 position. So a good run from them. Looks like we will have to see who dives into the pit lanes and picks up damage. Elliott not showing any visible damage on that front wing, but surely with the way they just went right into the back was not good. But Charlie Chibbles really the benefactor of that, as I believe Spike was hit in turn 1, and that's a almost 3-second advantage at the end of lap 1 for Charlie Chibbles over Spike. 2 seconds further back to Riemann, and then you've got Clone Richie, Milo all in this train. Blackbird starting to bridge the gap and nearly catch up. Looks like Gali has got a good run on Brad Spitt here, coming down the front straight. Takes to the inside, going to try and take that position away here just on the second lap. No DRS until the start of lap 3. As Gali on the inside, is Brad Spitt going to try and cut it back? They carry the extra momentum around the outside, and Gali is just going to have to slot in and relax for just a second. Not a good overtaking opportunity here. You just got to kind of settle in, hope the dirty air doesn't kill you. And Brad Spitt, though, has gone very wide. Brad Spitt on the outside. Gali sweeping around the outside. Not a conventional overtaking opportunity, but taking advantage of the mistake. We'll jump up now as Clone Richie and Riemann taking differing lines. Riemann defending to the inside. Clone Richie carrying the extra momentum from that wider entry and is able to clear another spot further back through the field. We'll now keep an eye on this battle here as Brad Spitt has now got Mazda on the gearbox and is going to try and make a move. Milo and Riemann switching back and forth down into turn 12. We didn't catch that one on screen. And all as they were there. Wilco in stealth just in the background. We'll see if we can grab some footage there. And some more battling side by side. You can see as they go through the switchbacks, the Mercedes of Renovatio has the nose ahead. Is Zados going to try and sweep around the outside? No, this is going to open the door for Peter Ward, who is up the inside. Coral also looking to try and make a move just ahead. Who is off? Gali is off. Gali is around facing the wrong way in the Alpine. Looks like they've tangled with Zados, so the two Division 2 drivers have gotten caught up with each other, and that has sent them near to the back of the grid, but DRS should be enabled this lap. Charlie Chibbles well clear of the DRS, as is Spike. Elliott, Brad Spitt all spaced out. This is the closest battle track. Oh, up the inside is Mazda going to try and send it. He got the nose in there. Brad Spitt, though, manages to maintain the gap. I think that's compromised the angle, though, as look at Mazda trying to work their way around. I think that's just not going to stick. There's not enough space, really, for the cars to go through quite like that. Mazda's just going to kind of have to hope that, much like, oh, he cuts it out. He gets up the inside, cuts it in. Now, is that a move that's made too early? With DRS enabled, that is going to be a big issue. And it looks like Ruprath the only one to opt for the pit lane. So, surprisingly, nobody, I think, picked up any damage, really, from that first corner incident. But Mazda took that position off of Brad Spitt and now is going to be at the mercy of that flipped open rear wing. And let's see if we can get a camera angle. Brad Spitt carrying pace, slipstream, trying to find a way past. Brad Spitt just placing the car to make the job difficult. Parks it a bit on the apex. There's a yellow flag just up ahead. I believe that is Clone Richie, who has had a bit of a bobble and a mistake, but has gotten going again. The leaders really have just taken off in this race, as you would expect with two Division 1 drivers up at the front. Riemann and False Tax are dueling as well, and that is a huge gaggle of cars. Oh, who has dropped it? That is Project Stealth. The Ferrari has dropped it in the flat-out right-hander. And now this group all clumped together. Coral's got good pace in this pack, but they've got to make the move. Go to the pit lane goes, I believe that is Riemann. So they are taking an early pit stop. 21 lives is the estimated hard tire life, or 21 laps. So we aren't quite in the window yet. We would see it maybe a lap. If there was a safety car this lap, hard tire runners could come in, or drivers could opt to come in for the hard tires and go. But look at False Tax with the grip in the S section, trying to find a way past Mazda. And Coral is just hanging out, relatively patiently lurking. They've got a very good launch off of turn 9 there and is going to close up. But False Tax going to have the DRS. Should be an easy move, barring any kind of setup differences that are major. It looks like a collection of cars. I believe that's Project Stealth and Zados who have combined for trouble back there. No, it's just Project Stealth. It looked like there was a dark blue dot, but False Tax sneaking through on Mazda there, as you would expect with the DRS. Coral not able to quite make the move, and there's quite a truly train going. Gali up past Space Ghost. as you would expect, he should be getting back on the pace and starting to catch up this gap. About 4 seconds, the margin to get onto the tail of Tez. A big wiggle from False Tex. That's going to cost them a little bit of momentum coming out of the corner there, but looks like they've got it just about gathered up, and away they go. Yellow flags once again through the flat right here. That's Coral around. Coral facing the wrong way. It's so tricky that you get some flash heating by loading that left rear so hard, and we've seen several drivers now just drop the rear of the car as it gets so hot. But Coral already coming back at Space Ghost. Space Ghost looking not to be fighting that one, and Coral in a spot to collect the DRS up. We'll jump back up to this battle of False Tax and Mazda as it seems to be switching back and forth with the DRS zones. That flashing rear light on the Ferrari, though, definitely using up a lot of battery power around this one. Now, around Circuit of the Americas, at least as far as my testing went, you only regen about 7% of your battery without using any overtake on the lap. So it is very, very slow to regen battery around this track. So if you have an attack that does not come off, you can find yourself in quite a bit of trouble. But this is your closest battle on track as False Tax has the rear wing open, is closing, but doesn't seem to be closing all that fast. It looks like the Ferrari's got some good straight line speed. Now, False Tex, though, pulling the inside, under braking into turn 12. Should be a rather clinical move, and gets it. Now they've got to try and run away and build up a little bit of a gap before they get to the next DRS straight. We'll check in here with Space Ghost and Gali, who are running right next to each other in the Williams and the Alpine. Spike holding the gap out front from Charlie Chibbles. About 2.7 seconds has been relatively stationary as they are just gradually dropping Clone Richie in third, who is aiming for that final podium position. However, really the train has the opportunity to start reeling in this gap. So look for the train to catch up and the battle for the podium positions to be a hotly contested one by the end of this race. Tez is ahead of his teammate Coral in the McLaren. You wouldn't expect it, but that spinner that Coral had has definitely cost them some time and likely some tire life. We should see medium tire runners start to push to probably about lap 10, 11 or so, and come in and make the change with the resilience of the hard tires. That extra 15 laps. Rather, sorry, I'm thinking of wrong numbers. It should be about lap 14 they should take those mediums to. And split it almost halfway. But looks like we'll jump up to this pack once again. Coming out of turn 11, DRS is open. Mazda not able to collect the DRS. And it looks like Tez has made a move on Renovatio into turn 11 and has cleared it off there. And False Tex not in a position to make the overtake happen. 6 laps into this 28-lap race, and Spike definitely has had an incident. Spike has had a moment. They've dropped off to 11 seconds now off of Charlie Chibbles, and the gap to Clone Richie only 1.9. So Spike certainly has had an off. They're coming into the pit lane. Has Spike picked up damage with a spin? We'll see if they are going to repair. Oh, and Spike picks up 5 seconds for speeding in the pit lane. So horrible, horrible choice there. We will see. They seem to have some connection issues going. Wilco picks up the first of our track limit penalties. So we'll get off of Spike there as they seem to be lagging just a little bit. And we'll see how much time they spend in the pit lane. It's the amount of time they're spending stationary does appear to indicate that there is a front wing change being made on that Alpine. So Charlie Chibbles essentially in bring it home mode already 7 laps into this race. Of course, a safety car could change it all. We'll have to wait and see if one is going to come out, but field has sorted themselves out a little. Actually, we'll jump on. We'll grab Elliott, who is with their 10 seconds worth of time penalties, closing up to the back of Blackbird, and should be able to use the pace that they know they have. Looks like a bit of a squirrely exit for Blackbird out of turn 11. DRS is open, but doesn't appear to be really closing down on Blackbird. Blackbird using much lower wings, it would seem. And Elliott not going to be in a position to effect an overtake. Jumping to Mazda now as they are in the DRS of False Tax and Brad Spitt. Brad Spitt to the inside. False Tax holds their racing line. Mazda and Brad Spitt. Oh, Mazda just kind of run out of space there on that one. Didn't have a good angle to see how much if they just ran deep, but we will have to see if it goes to the stewards room. But Milo sweeping through, although this is the feature of this middle sector, is Milo dives out to avoid the sausage curbs, carries some speed there, and that may be not. Yep, they're lifting out and giving that position back. So good for Milo there to recognize the advantage gained and give it back and re-attack. There's yellow flags. Project Stealth is around on the exit of turn 9, an easy place to lose the car. And there's another spinner. I believe that is Gali who's gone around. No, Spike. Yes, it is Gali. Sorry. It was just grabbing the wrong number. So Gali once again around in the long right-hander. So drivers finding it difficult to handle this long right-hander. Elliott slips through Blackbird into turn 1. Gali picking up track limits penalties now, and I think Elliott should have the opportunity to start gallivanting away. He's got 5 seconds to catch up to Clone Richie ahead. Not out of the question. 20 laps left to go in this one, so just has to find a couple of tenths a lap and should be able to get onto the back end of Clone Richie, although they are carrying that 10 seconds of time penalty, so that will shuffle them down the order pretty aggressively. Spike picking up the next of the track limits penalties, making their penalty time total 8 seconds. Blackbird trying to re-attack Elliott into the corner. Not going to make it. We're going to jump ahead now as Project Stealth is out of the session. And they've retired on track. That is a bit naughty. It doesn't appear that it's going to call any kind of safety car as Tez slips their way through Peter Ward rather clinically with the DRS, and I think that will be that Ferrari will not cause any kind of safety car or VSC. So we will continue on just about fine in this one. 15 seconds the margin out front as that car is finally cleared, and we are fully green around the track once again. Brad Spitt, Milo a couple seconds up ahead are actually dicing quite nicely here. We'll see if the Mercedes is able to get a good run on the Alfa Romeo in this case. Although it looks like Alfa Romeo does have DRS off of the Ferrari ahead. So it's going to make it a little tougher for Milo to close up and make that overtake into the braking zone of turn 1. Seems to make up a bit of ground and has a pretty good exit. Now, that Alfa Romeo sparking quite a lot coming down the hill. I know that setup-wise, you do need to worry about bottoming out in this game a lot more as Brad Spitt picks up 3 seconds worth of time penalties, and that is going to really give Milo the opportunity. Now, Milo likely going to just kind of sit back, not try and stick their nose in unless it's a very clear overtake, because they are going to have DRS. Now, they are in a position, that's the detection point. So if Milo can send it up the inside of turn 11, which they've got their nose just about in there, and that should give them a plenty good run. See that rear wing flip open now, and away they go. So they should be able to make some good ground there. Coral closing up on Peter Ward, just a few seconds back of that battle we were watching as Milo is going to clear off of Brad Spitt down into turn 1. And Coral makes their way past Peter Ward, although Peter Ward fighting it back around the outside. Not quite enough braking capacity there to get there. So Coral starting to claw their way back through the field now. Elliott sitting at 4.1 seconds is making a little bit of time on Blackbird per lap. Not a huge influence, but is starting to make their way up. Coral, though, in P10 now, is just 1 second off of their teammate Tez. We will see if Tez is going to fight this position very much, or if they will let it through. Of course, in the PC Div R race, some drivers are driving cars that they are not part of the team's championship in their main division. So, team orders, less likely to happen, less team cooperation. So we will see if Tez and Coral are going to play nice together, or if Tez is going to fight for their position. Yellow flags once again through the long right-hander in Sector 3, and that is Gali once again. So something about the setup is not right. I'm sure they're going to take some homework home and try and get that dialed out before their next race for PC Division 2. Luckily, they've got a couple days after that, as PC Division 2 concludes the FRS weekends. It's the last one running on Sundays. Coral has made tremendous time on Tez in this first sector and now the start of the second. Only about 2/10 as False Tax and Elliott swapping positions once again. Apologies. My throat is definitely drying out. And Coral, with the DRS, should have a relatively easy time, although it looks like Tez deploying some battery to fight back. Coral, though, going to get the full car ahead into the braking zone. and should be able to just about sort that position. We'll check back in with the Ferrari of Mazda, who is behind Elliott and False Tax, as that battle continues to rage on. We've got a bit of a small train going. 3 cars all in a row and trying to manage their way through turns 16, 17, 18. We should be just about getting... Oh, False Tax is into the pit lane. I was about to say we should be just about starting to get into pit ranges. The window is open for the most daring of drivers. So False Tax into the pits, onto the hard compound tires. We've also got Brad Spitt, Peter Ward, Renovatio all into the pit lane. They're going to be looking to take 27 laps on the hard tires. That's a bit of an ask. Or no, 17. Never mind. I can do math. So they're just about in the window. So 17 laps should be plenty to get to the end. The hard tires can go about 21 laps, but now we've got a good, healthy mix. Elliott going to have to extend a little bit longer on those hard tires. Mazda doing well to keep those medium tires in the window while in a hot pursuit of Elliott. It's in the DRS range this time. Gets a good launch off of the final corner before the log back straight. And yellow flags. There's somebody going slowly. That is Brad Spitt who's going slowly. It looks like he's just trying to get those hard tires up to temperature. Sorry, we missed Elliott moving out of the way of Mazda. Mazda, though, is gone deep. Elliott going to re-attack into this switchback session. Oh, big send is very deep on the brakes and makes contact with the side of Elliott. So Mazda just kind of missing the braking point and is going to continue this fight. Elliott chopping the nose there as Mazda was not anywhere enough alongside to be justified space in that corner. But here we are, flat. Try and keep it flat for as long as you can through this corner. It's very tough. Milo in the Mercedes has been lurking at many occasions, but not quite made the overtake stick. Riemann picks up a 3-second time penalty. But as far as your biggest gainers, Blackbird up 12 positions from the start. Tez up 9. And Ruprath has dropped 11 positions and has had a relatively tough day. But about half the field has stopped now. Most of your medium tire runners have made a stop. We still have a few up at the front of the field. As Mazda is still... And you can see Milo got close. They got into within 2/10 in that final sector. But now 6/10 off the back. So not quite making the impact that you would want from being right there. Especially when they've got DRS in. Mazda going to dice with Elliott now as a False Tax. We will have to keep an eye out and see. Should be about a 20-second pit lane loss. False Tax, though, picking up a 3-second time penalty. So that is going to be a tough one for them. Let's just grab the data so I can see when people come into the pit lane. We'll keep an eye on the leader gaps. We are within range where Charlie Chibbles should be able to comfortably come in as Mazda is making a move down the inside of Elliott. Side by side they go. Elliott, though, carrying the momentum through the outside of the corner and is able to just about sort it. 18 seconds the lead for Charlie Chibbles out front. May even be just about in position to take a free pit stop ahead of Claude Ritchie. Once again, Milo is making quite a bit of inroads on this pack. Is able to get right up near the gearbox of the Ferrari as into the pit lanes. So Mazda 33 seconds off the lead when they dive in. We will see where they are in comparison to the lead at the when they exit the pit lane. That'll give us a good idea of the pit time loss. As long as they don't have any wing change, they do not. Medium tires off, hard tires go on. Quick release. McLaren coming into the pit lane behind them. And now we will see when they exit. So from 33 seconds to now just about... We'll wait for that timer. 51. So we're looking at about an 18-second pit loss, and of course you're going to lose a little bit of extra time with the tire warm-up. So now they've come out behind False Tax by a fair margin on this one. So undercut seems to be relatively decent, although False Tax had a couple extra laps, I believe, on those hard tires, and is now in position to attack Blackbird. Really, the fight we'll see is going to be when Elliott is going to come in. How the alternate... Oh, contact nose to tail as False Tax gets into the back of Blackbird. I think that's compromised the exit a little bit. They've kind of lifted out, given up the advantage, and now are going to look to re-attack. So DRS is open. False tacks down the back straight, trying to find a camera angle. There it goes. Sweeps over to the braking zone, takes the line completely, and has got that move done on Blackbird. False tacks a couple laps older on the tires, and now we just have to wait and see, as it looks like Charlie Chibbles, I believe... No, that is Elliott who is coming around the corner next. So Chibbles has continued to stay out in this one. 13 laps worth of time. Millo is into the pit lane. So the Mercedes diving in now to make their tire change, as is Coral. So both McLarens should be done with their pit stop strategies at this point and able to go the remaining 14 laps to the end of this one. Charlie Chibbles hasn't had any camera time. They're just kind of managing battery, managing overall pace. They're using quite a lot of ERS this time around, so I would assume they're probably on a push in lap. We'll see how they can sneak their way through this middle sector. Mazda looks like actually Mazda might be going for a move. Mazda does make a move on Millo, though Millo on the cold tires. To be expected that they lose out in that position. Same with Space Ghost going through on Coral. So we should see Millo and Coral start to get back up to the group. But we will see, is this the push lap in for Charlie Chibbles? Nope, they've stayed out once again. So we'll keep an eye on their progress as Wilco picks up another time penalty. Brad Spitt is the next closest battle on track behind Peter Ward. The Alfa Romeo looking to attack the Red Bull on this one. Should be just inside the DRS range. Looks like Zados and Ruprath are also close. Yellow flags once again, though. It looks like Clone Richie may have had a moment as we're looking at one of the Alfa Romeos, and I saw yellow flags where there was a Alfa Romeo. So yeah, Clone Richie into the pit lane, lost a couple extra seconds, lost about 4 seconds with what appears to be a spin through the final sector. So that is going to give Charlie Chibbles the freest of free pit stops now. Should be able to come in and have almost 10, 11 seconds to Elliott. Spike sets the fastest lap of the race on those hard compound tires, so is pushed well. Coral is out. Coral and Tez, it looks like both the McLarens tangled, and that is going to be a full safety car. A full safety car has been called as the two McLarens tangled. Coral is the one out of the session. Tez is continuing on, but we saw both the McLarens just kind of spun around, and it looks like Coral has gotten into the barriers because of it. That car has been cleared up, but now Space Ghost into the pit lane, going to obviously make their pit stop. They're going to get off a set of hard tires. They're within range to get a set of mediums to the end easily. Space Ghost onto the mediums. Who is going to opt for the next pit stop? Now that'll be an interesting one to see how they handle. Of course, Yellow Dot stopped on in Sector 1 as we wait for them to pick up the race leader. Gali staying out on the hard tires. Of course, you only got one set of hards, one set of mediums for the race. And is that Chibbles? No, Chibbles is into the pit lane. It looked for a second like the Dot had stayed out. Chibbles is in, Wilco is in. So realistically, if you're sitting in the Aston Martin of Charlie Chibbles, you wanted this race to stay green because they could have pit and had 12 seconds on the next car. Now they're going to pit, and even though they're not going to lose any position, they're going to have a car bunched up. However, that other car is Elliott, who is on 14 lap old hards and likely should be coming in this lap. That will lose them the position to Spike. Maybe not Clone Richie. About 14 seconds the gap right now between Elliott and Clone Richie. So they should be, and Ruprath picking up a 3-second time penalty while under. Wilco has gone on to the soft compound tires. This is an interesting strategy because the soft compound tires, I think, only go about 9 laps. I don't believe that Wilco is going to get all the way to the end. So we do have Elliott, who is onto the mediums. They've actually come all the way down out behind Millo. So they've lost quite a bit of time. Of course, well, rather, the delta times are live deltas, not what they were in full racing speed. So that's just me doing bad mental math. But Spike is back in this race, essentially. Now, they do have some old tires compared to Charlie Chibbles. So that is going to be a tougher ask, but they've at least had the gap reduced. Chibbles has picked up the safety car, and we should see Once the pack starts to get bunched up, they will likely clear the Haas of, I believe that is Wilco that is right behind. Yeah, those red marks, soft tires. So that is Wilco right behind Charlie Chibbles, who is last man running on the track. So he should be able to get the wave around and take the and clear out the lapped car between Spike and Charlie Chibbles. False tax, Blackbird moving up as Clone Richie is coming into the pit. Or no, Clone Richie has lost it. Clone Richie has gone off the track, so they've not pitted. They've just made a mistake that's cost them 2 positions. Interesting. Definitely an interesting one. Field still relatively spread out. We'll probably have one more lap or so under safety car conditions before the field has gathered up, as the leaders are crossing the start-finish line, and the tail of the pack is just now coming through turn 11. So still lots of ground to make up on this one. Although the bulk of the pack is starting to catch up with the race leaders. But now we're going to have to see how drivers handle under safety car conditions the warm-up of these hard tires. Obviously, the hard tires coming out of the pit lanes, very cold, tough to get some grip in there. And now once you're reach underneath safety car conditions, driving relatively slowly definitely makes it hard to keep the temperature in those tires. So Chibbles definitely going to have a handful getting this race restarted, although the top 7 drivers all on the hard compound tires. This has not helped out Elliott, who's carrying those 10 seconds worth of time penalties. One set for the shambles, and they may see even more time penalty for that shambles. The game only awarded 5 seconds. Shambles of that degree into turn 1 on a couple occasions this season has been awarded 10-second time penalties. So expect that Elliott will likely lose some more spots in the steward's room of this one. But as we're about to cross the 10 laps left to go mark, lap 17 of 28 is what we were on now. Field still not bunched up. Charlie Chibbles leads the race and has had a commanding lead in this one. Spike has recovered to P2 after some spins in this one. False Tax is up to 3rd. Blackbird 4th. Madsta in the top 5. Milo makes it P6. Clone Richie 7th. Elliott, Brad Spitt, and Peter Ward round out your top 10 in the points paying positions. Tez is P11, Renovatio in 12th, Space Ghost 13th, Ruprath 14th, Zados is in 15th ahead of Gali, who has had several spins in this one. Riemann and Captain Wilco is a lap down and will likely should get the wave around, I expect. Coral is the cause of this safety car. Unfortunately, says cold tires caught a spin and was into the barriers. So that is why they are out of this one, and Project Stealth was the first retirement, although retired in a way that they did not end up triggering any kind of safety car. Somebody has pinged me on Discord. And yeah, I will jump into, while we're doing this, wake up mouse. I will jump into the Motorsports Comms channel, and it seems we are going to be joined by none other than Coral. So let me make sure that Discord voice is active.
Hey there, how's it going, Quimby?
Oh, good. It's sad to see you out. We thought it may have been a tangle between you and Tez, as Tez was around. And, you know, these PC Divar races are less team orders, but from the chat said it seems it was cold tires that did you?
Yeah, Box put on those hard tires, which were cold, and I felt I had some pace there towards the end of my medium stint. I was closing the gap back down to Milo at the top of the grid there. And so popped the hard tires on going for the undercut, I think, and just wasn't able to get it done. Caught a spin, couldn't catch it, and unfortunate. I haven't crashed out in a while, so.
Yeah, we definitely had an interesting start to this race. I don't know how much you saw of the Bottas-style bowling that we saw in turn 1. Elliott seemed to have just completely missed the braking point. Surprisingly, only one driver had to pit for damage after that, so I was shocked.
Yeah, It was a little tricky. I think I was 3 wide going into turn one. Actually got a decent start and pulled up beside Ruproth in third. And then the gap in the middle, you know, when you go 3 wide, got a little pinched, so it was heavy on my brakes and then bumped behind. So ended up in the runoff area past turn one. I think dropped from, what was it? I qualified fifth or sixth down to the mid-teens positions, but felt I had some pace. Kind of crawled through those positions for a while before I actually spun in that long right-hander, hot tires, and then again worked my way back through the grid before I ended up crashing out. But so far, I mean, it was a good race. Felt I had pace. Looking forward to Sunday.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of drivers are learning about the long right-hander. Gali, I've seen has gone around a few times. I think a lot of drivers in this are probably going to show up to their main races with reduced tire pressures on the rears to try and keep it. We're back to green flag racing though, as Charlie Chibble's nearly 40-second gap is gone, but he does have a tire advantage, life advantage on Spike, and of course Spike carrying 8 seconds of time penalties in this one, so we'll see. Should have an opportunity to kind of gap out away from it.
Yeah, and you know, it was something that really brought Spike back into this race, having that safety car, and he does have, what, 12-lap old hard tires now, so it's going to be pretty tight for him to make it to the end. I mean, the hards probably can do it, but above like 45-50%, those hards really get slidey in Sector 1.
Yeah, I think in my personal testing, I found that max life was about 21 laps on them. That's when they started to get into the puncture territory, and yeah, you're right, that just keeping the car pointing the right direction through the S section, or at least not understeering straight across track limits, is the big challenge. But you know, the field was really spread out. Now we're bunched back together, so unfortunate thank you on that one. But hopefully you've got good information going into your race later.
Yeah, that is important, and you know, I like these you know, reserve division races on Fridays because, one, you get this multi-class racing, which is super interesting because you get a lot of overtaking. You know, drivers like you know, Spike having to work his way back through the grid. It gets very exciting. Very similar to normal Formula One, instead of the drivers being different, the cars are. But it's always an exciting race on Friday.
Most definitely, yeah. And I'd say it's good for the broadcasters as well, because we get to see kind of the strategy choices, how people fare on hard tires, undercuts, overcuts, how they are battling, and where people are going to start attacking. We've seen a lot of people today attacking into the S section, like we've got Mazda now, who's trying to make a move on Blackbird. And as you mentioned, that, you know, that multi-class kind of pace differential kind of opens up some of those more unconventional overtaking opportunities, as Mazda really just trying to find their way past Blackbird. They've got, you know, 3 seconds to close up. False tax still with a 3-second time penalty. If Mazda can clear Blackbird, they could be on the podium.
Yeah, and you know, I raced with Mazda earlier this week, and I mean, he has absolutely tremendous pace as he makes a fantastic overtake right there. Late on the brakes, able to rotate the car, get on the throttle, so that was a great move to catch. But he's got a lot of pace. You know, definitely above his I think he's PC3, so above his weight class here is one of his better tracks.
Yeah, Blackbird fighting back into turn 12, and it's one of my personal favorite things, this middle sector of Circuit of the Americas. As you can see, as it switches back, double right-hander, double left-hander, you get tons of different lines that people take, and you know, you have that long DRS straight down into turn 12 and you think, oh, job done. But there's a section of corners that really promote good racing for the next five turns, and you can almost take it all the way to the start-finish line.
Yeah, it really does, and then it's a masterclass on the brakes. I think the braking is really critical to that curvy sector. And I think that's why
Elliot's around. Elliot has gotten way too much power down onto the start-finish straight. Has speared into the pit wall. I think he's had I mean, the front wing is still attached, but he nearly collected several other cars, just losing the rear. Surprisingly, no safety cars or anything called.
Yeah, so kept it clean, and now Milo is all over the back of Blackbird here through Sector 1. There's a lot of pace differential, and I think the rest of this weekend we're going to continue to see that in the normal grid racing, as Claude Ritchie actually spins out in Sector 1 as well. So I think it's a very technical sector. It's a very big difference between being on a wheel and being on a pad, and your ability to carry speed through some of those corners.
Yeah, one of the things that as Clone Richie picks up one of those lovely instant 10-second time penalties for cutting, it would appear, turn 9. Let's cut that one pretty. But one of the things you mentioned Sector 1. It takes a lot of inspiration from Maggots and Beckett's in Silverstone, obviously. But you mentioned getting the line right. And one of the things that I was talking to in the Mercedes chat about drivers that are relatively new to the league was give up time. As Milo's sending it up the inside of that double left hander. What a move there. And that's just kind of that alternate line. And if you're brave on the brakes and you get the car rotate, that's great. So Milo's now got to try and chase down Mazda, who has, about a second to make up to catch up with false tax. But as I was saying, I was telling, more of the new drivers, like, give up a tenth of a second as you start the S's. Because if you get wrong-footed and you're just off the line, you're going to carry that until turn 9, and you're going to lose 5-6 tenths of a second. It's better to give up that one at the start and get your line right as opposed to lose it all.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I even find, myself lifting, and you watch some of the track guides, and, these guys are flat through those first 2 S's and then just barely lifting off into that third. But, just that little bit of lift that I do on the second S kind of stabilizes the car, able to keep it cool and collected and a little bit quicker through to turn 9. It is difficult, and especially if you're being pressured from behind, you're like, I can just keep my foot in it and we'll go. But then that's where you get a little sideways and you end up putting yourself in a bad position. As Blackbird actually goes around there, was getting closer to Milo, but looks like he gone around there at turn 10.
And the pressure works both ways when you're trying to overtake as well, especially, Austin is not exactly known as the smoothest track in the world. There's definitely bumpy braking zones, bumpy acceleration zones, and, coming out of a tight hairpin like turn 11 there, and you're trying to get a good run for that DRS straight, all it takes is just an extra 5-10% of throttle, and instead of getting a good launch, you're facing the wrong way.
Yeah, and it's a polar opposite track to what we had last week. I mean, last week we had people running 0-0 wings, no downforce at all, and you get here to Austin, and I'd say this is probably one of the highest downforce tracks that we have all season, even more so than Spain. So we're really testing the driver's abilities here to go from track to track, where we've got very different setups and approaches to the race.
Yeah, it's definitely, I believe my setup, if I have to double check, is definitely higher wings than Spain in round 1. I was one of the 0-0 runners that just hung on for dear life last week through the middle sector, and it seemed to pay off because it made me very difficult to overtake down the straights. But
I heard you got a podium last week.
I got some luck from safety cars. They came out at the right times, but driving like a puppy on lap 1 when everybody is shambling their way through the first lap, you can pick up 4 or 5 positions there, and then just run an alternate strategy, get a good timing on a safety car. And another thing that was important is we're seeing, you look down the timing tower, penalty, keeping clean of track limit penalties can also net you some positions, as Charlie Chibble's game crashes bite again. Spike had closed up to within a second, and now Charlie Chibbles might just lose a win off of his PC crashing this game almost every time in the last week.
Yeah, but I need Mazda to either pick it up a little bit or false tax to fall back, and Charlie to quickly regain his computer, because my pre-race prediction here of Spike, Chibs, and then Mazda is almost intact here with only 5 laps left.
It's getting close. Yeah, I mentioned the pre-race prediction. You put it in the chat. I spoke it into existence so that everybody can hear it when they're watching this back on the VODs. So everybody knows that prediction. And so it says Charlie Chibbles has rejoined, so he's back in. False tax has made their way through as well. Or false tax has that 3-second time penalty. I would expect that Charlie Chibbles should clear false tax relatively quickly. Now Mazda, though, does have to get a move on. They went from being just outside that 3-second margin to closer to 4.5 seconds. So they've lost a little bit of ground to false tax. But as we've seen all race, turn 16, 17, 18, that triple right-hander, anything can happen there. Anybody can be facing the wrong way, especially as we get to hard tires, get them worn down late in this race.
Yeah, and it will be interesting all weekend. And I mean, we saw it here at the very first race, that the turn 1 shambles. I think, we looked at that last week in Spa, and most of the divisions kept it clean. And just when we thought that Division 2 might have been clean, unfortunately, it was me and Golly coming together. So apologies to him for maybe not leaving quite enough space. But, everybody this season, I think, is a little bit more confident in placing their car. And sometimes it's causing shambles. Other times it's causing fantastic racing. So we'll have to see how it continues on this weekend.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that going into turn one on the cold tires is less than ideal. It's kind of what we have to deal with at the moment. Hopefully that can get fixed with the formation lap issues relatively soon. But that definitely makes it a little tougher. But yeah, we're 6 seasons in, and a lot of people on the grid now have been around the FRS for 3, 4, 5 seasons, know who they're racing very well, or become familiar with how different drivers drive, and they get, as you say, confident with where they think they can place the car. And if two people feel confident that they own a certain portion of the track, that's where contact happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just checked race directors. We're looking at the top of the grid here and who has penalties and who doesn't. And False actually has 5 warnings, so is treading lightly here with only being able to get one more warning, and he ends up with another 3 seconds. So
yeah, definitely. And as we were talking about at Sector 1 earlier, if you get wrong-footed right away, you can pick up two warnings. If you just understeer wide to the first part of the S, you end up running across the runoff of one part, and you kind of carry too much momentum, and you run across again. It looks like there's a Haas that is spun through there and is off the back of the pack there. So nothing too shambly there. They're back moving once again. Oh, and that is Zados, who has gone around once again getting the power down out of turn 11. So it's been catching quite a few drivers out. And he is under serious pressure from Riemann and Clone Ritchie now.
Yeah, that whole group has kind of been in a DRS chain for a number of laps now. And so Zados with that spin is, I think, going to now be positioned towards the back of that chain, which is going to make it really difficult to recover those positions back into the points.
Yeah, and they were going 3 wide into turn 12. A little bobble from Riemann ahead of Zados meant a little bit of contact. But another thing that is a kind of a feature of the heavy braking zones here in Austin are they're very wide corner entries, turn 1, turn 11, turn 12, but very narrow corner exits. It really gives you a chance to funnel down, so you can feel like, oh, I've got all the space in the world going 3 wide into a corner, but once you get to the exit, it gets a little nip and tuck there.
For sure, especially in Sector 3. Almost all of those corners are built the same way. A lot of them have changes in camber from the inside of the corner to the outside. So if you're taking a non-standard line through the corner, you also have to be very careful in the throttle exiting the corner, because it may be a little bit different than what you're used to.
Yeah, and another issue with camber is that turn 9. You exit the S's, there's that final flick left, and it's got a massively cambered corners that Charlie Chibbles looks to be retaking their position on track from False Tax. Madsta just inside the 6 seconds, really needs False Tax to miss the apex somewhere.
And I think False does, actually. False goes very wide and loses almost a full second there to Chibs, but Mazda's going to get passed by Milo into the corner, so, position lost for now for Mazda.
Yeah, and Milo's been duking it out with that group the whole time, has seemed to be closing up through the more twisty bits and just not able to quite make a move stick on the straight, so maybe Milo doing kind of the opposite spa and going with much higher wings than everybody else, and that, can really help you in keeping the tires alive as you're sliding around a little bit less around this track. But, you got to try and make the moves happen around here. But as it stands, Charlie Chibbles should jump ahead of Spike easily on time penalties. False Tax is inside the margin. It's a 5-second delta between Spike and False Tax. So False Tax may be coming home with a P2 in this one.
Yeah, and I was actually just about to give Peter Ward a shout out, Division 4 runner that was running inside the points, and I'd say a pretty stacked grid, but unfortunately had lost it there in Sector 3 and has fallen back down to 13th. So these corners and the traction here at COTA is really calling the drivers out, and tomorrow starts our official weekend, so I think either a lot of work to be done or definitely some taking some speed off the table to keep the car in a straight line this weekend.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely see drivers probably driving to, I would say, about half to 7/10, half a second to 7/10 of a second off of what they feel their ultimate pace could be, unless they, need to start making ground, as Mazda's closing on the back of Milo down into turn 12, but not quite close enough to make a move stick. So, I mean, at least I speak for myself. I will definitely be a little bit more easy unless I have a big reason to push hard and, take that risk, because there's so many bumps, so many camber changes around this track that can just instantly catch you out.
Yeah, I mean, look at me, for example, pushing a little too hard on those new hard tires, and quickly, I mean, in a second, I'm in a wall now. So, lessons learned for me, and if others are rewatching this race before tomorrow, then lessons learned there as well.
From the racetrack to a barrier to the commentary booth, which I appreciate because especially after last week's Div 4 race that I went alone with like 5 safety cars. That one took forever. But this one has been relatively smooth sailing as we're starting the final lap of this race. Spike out in the lead of the race, although net behind Charlie Chibbles and False Tax. 8 seconds to get. What is the gap? Milo is 10 seconds behind Spike, so he's got to hope for a mistake from Spike or somehow find 2 seconds on this lap in order to climb into that position. But it's looking like Charlie Chibbles, even with the disconnect that cost them 2 on-track positions, is still going to cruise their way home to this one. And, Charlie Chibbles really showing very good pace around Coda.
Yeah, he really is, and definitely somebody to look out for tomorrow. I think during the practice races this week, Frazier's looked extremely fast as he has all season. So I think takeaway from this race is, Chibs is a serious contender.
And Spike has had a bit of a slow start. Obviously, the controller issues, since Spike does race on pad, has kept them from performing at their ideal pace for the first couple races. It's still not fully sorted, but it looks like they've at least got a little bit of something going, as their overall pace today was good, and they do take the checkered flag first. Charlie Chibbles, though, did close down the gap and is the winner here in the U.S. Grand Prix. False Tax comes home P2. Spike gets shuffled down to third. Milo crosses the line fourth. Mazda rounds out the top 5. We'll see where Elliott falls to with their pile of penalties, although I believe they served one of them. So they should only have an extra 5 seconds added on. That should keep them ahead of, I believe, Blackbird coming out of the final corner next, with Gali right on the back end. And actually, Riemann is going to jump ahead of Gali because of track penalties, as does Zados. So Gali actually falls all the way out of the points based on their track limits penalties.
Yeah, we see Tez shuffle up, 4 positions up into the points, just by keeping it clean on track, no track limit penalties. So might be also, something to watch out for the rest of this weekend. Typically, we see these track limits at Austria. Typically, that's where you see, the race being decided by track limit penalties. So it's interesting that we see it here at Coda, and then, we go to Austria next week. So potentially a lot of cases of drivers needing to keep that car on track and within the white lines.
Yep, and it is the white lines. Unlike F1 has had some strange choices of track limits, I would say F1 does have a problem with double warnings from time to time, but it at least kind of knows where the white lines are.
For sure, but I mean, overall, I think an entertaining race. Unfortunate that I crashed out, but at least my safety car, I guess, brought some new excitement to what was a pretty spread out grid at the time. And always nice to hop into the commentary box with you, Quimby, as well.
Most definitely, yeah. It's been a minute since we've shared the booth together, but always a good time to make it an all Yankee commentary team.
Yeah, congrats to Chibbles taking home a race win here. Congrats to False Tax, who was a little questionable about his Div 1 placement at beginning of the season, but coming home P2 and Spike rounding out the podium. Congrats to them for a well-run race.
Indeed, yeah. False Tax, while I wouldn't say, they may not be a championship challenger. I mean, you're going to have people up and down the grid through division, but they're definitely Div 1 material and definitely could, in good conditions, snake a podium or maybe even a win. I mean, they were essentially a Charlie Chibbles track limits penalty away from taking a win today.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in the official Division R standings, False Tax probably going to take over the lead. So will be leading the quote unquote multi-class FRS division championship, so to say.
Yeah, but here's your final order. Obviously provisional in case of any stewards inquiries that we may see from Shambles. But Charlie Chibbles takes the race win here. False Tax brings home a solid P2. Spike rounds out the podium in third. Milo is fourth with Madsta, Elliott, Blackbird, and then Zados. Tez and Riemann round out the top 10 scoring points. Renovatio, Gali, Peter Ward, Brad Spit, Ruprath, Space Ghost, Clone Richie. Then you have Wilco, and then yourself and Project Stealth. The only non-finishers in this one is PC Div R still maintains one of the highest finishing rates of any FRS division.
Yeah, very, very interesting. But yeah, great to share the commentary box. Really good racing. Looking forward to this weekend. Won't be joining the Div 1 stream. I think Dan is possibly all alone tomorrow. So hopefully he'll have a good time, and good luck to everybody this weekend.
Yep, good luck to you in your official race, and we will catch you next time. Thank you everybody for tuning in as well. And we are back on with the PC Division 1 race, 7 p.m. UTC tomorrow right here on FRS Motorsports, and on the FRS community channel is Xbox Division 1 race, which will be AWD Turbo Guy commentating. I'll be racing in that, and then we are jumping into, it is, I believe, PC Division 4, if I'm not mistaken, is the Saturday night closer.
Yes, it is.
I always mix up 2 and 4.
Yeah, the 4 is on Saturday nights, and then I think it's Division 3 and then Division 2 on Sundays. So start and finish with our 2 highest divisions.
Most definitely. All right. Well, thank you again, Coral, for jumping into the box after the retirement today. It was good to have you alongside.
Likewise. Good night, everybody.